Dealing with haters. Well, I think everybody watching this video has at either one point in their life or they're presently dealing with haters. In other words, people that are in essence projecting their own self-hatred, self-loathing, their own weaknesses onto you, which is really just masking the fact that they're envious or they want to be you or they fear that you're better than them. Because the world seems to never have a shortage of weak people, and weak people who are people in essence who are too weak to follow their own dreams. Guess what? They're always going to find a reason to discourage yours. And when you have goals, you have dreams, especially when you start applying the kinds of things that you're learning from me, obviously your friends and your family are going to notice this. They're going to notice a change. They're going to notice a change in the way you carry yourself. They're going to notice a change in the tone of your voice. They're going to notice a change in just your body language, your physiology. And people around you, especially when you really start striving for your goals and your dreams, you start pursuing the things that you want, the things that you're passionate about, and you start moving in that direction, and you start kind of moving away from your friends, your family, your peer group that you normally spend a lot of time with. Some of those people are going to fear that they're going to lose you, because the average person, let's face it, most people in this world just are not living up to their potential, and they're not reaching for it, they're not striving for it, because they have a whole host of excuses and reasons why things are not in the cards for them. And when they see somebody that's in their peer group doing something to better themselves and improve their life or their situation, that person in essence becomes like a giant mirror, a giant reflection back to them. In other words, they look at it and they go, well, if you're so successful, it's a reflection to them of how they're not successful. And so that if they can discourage you, if they can get you to give up on striving for the things that you want, all order remains in their universe, in their world, and therefore they don't have to do anything. But if you go and you stretch and you move away from them and you eventually succeed, then obviously they're going to personally feel bad about themselves. And since they don't like to feel bad about themselves, that's where the old saying comes from: misery loves company. In other words, like attracts like, even miserable people. So if you have a lot of miserable people in your life, or people that just are not doing anything to help themselves or participate in their own rescue or reach their full potential, they're not going to like you doing that, because it makes them feel uncomfortable. It reflects back to them of how they're not living up to their own potential in life. And that's why it's so important that you have a vision and you have a mission for your life, something that you want to create, a purpose that you, if you're a man, a purpose that you want to fulfill, even if you're a woman. You got to have something that you're going to do for a living, whether you're raising babies or you have a career and you're raising babies on top of that. There's not a one-size-fits-all in the world when it comes to relationships or family or raising kids. I mean, there's plenty of people that are successful now, plenty of very successful women that are saying, hey, you know what, all these relationships I've had over the years are great, but I'd really like to have kids. And so instead of waiting to meet Mr. Perfect to have children with, they're just going out and adopting kids on their own and starting their own families without the guy in their life. And it's cool that people have the ability to do that these days. I mean, 100 years ago, that would have been unheard of. But these days, where women have the same kind of freedom to pursue a career and pursue dreams and pursue things that make them happy, they're not so much dependent upon a man to provide their income, their food, roof over the head, provide for their children. Women can go out and they potentially have the same kind of earning potential as men do. So I've got an email here from a guy who's been following me for a while, and he's made some changes in his life, but now he's starting to get some pushback from his family. And this is something that I dealt with very early on in my life. In my family, the way we grew up, it was constant ridicule, constantly making fun of each other, putting each other down, cutting each other down. And there was no hugs, there were no I love yous. And so you're basically getting ignored, or you're being put down and made fun of. And so like for me, I remember as I got older, I just got to the point where I just didn't tell my parents what I was doing or what I was up to or what I was going to achieve or what I was going to accomplish, because usually they didn't have anything positive to say. When I started my real estate companies in the 90s, I quit my job working for a very stable company, the largest part of the largest construction company in the world at the time in the 90s. And I remember he didn't have a positive word of encouragement to say about that. He thought it was reckless of me to quit my job and borrow 50 grand of my credit cards, which it was. But the bottom line is it was done. I'd already quit and left the job, and I was already working. I was just sharing my excitement with what I was doing. And obviously, knowing now what I know, like my dad is just looking from the perspective, I don't want my son to suffer here. I don't want him to be disappointed, so let me just go ahead and destroy his dreams right now and tell him, how foolish it is and how it's never going to work out, because I don't want my son to experience disappointment. And I remember saying to my dad, I was like, Dad, I love you, but if you don't have something positive to say, if you're not going to stand behind me, if you don't think it's great, if you're not excited for me, I don't really want to hear it. I mean, sometimes you got to say that. Sometimes you got to say, Mom, Dad, I love you, but please mind your fucking business, in a nice but firm way that lets them know that they're stepping over the boundary here. Especially this goes for who you date, the women that you have in your life, the women you're married to, or women that you happen to be dating. If you're going to be in a relationship, you've got to, or even when you're dating, you've got to make sure that the women that you're dating have something positive to say. They think it's exciting and interesting and fascinating that you do what you do, and they encourage you. You want a woman in your life that's a cheerleader. If you're going to be dating, you want somebody that's got positive things to say, because as a man, if you're doing something you really love and you're excited about it, you're not going to be able to help but talk about it, because you're going to want to. Because you're going to be excited about it. You're going to want to share it with everybody. You want to tell everybody how you're excited about what it is that you're creating. And you want a woman to be your biggest cheerleader in your life if you're going to be in a relationship. Because I talk to guys many times that have their own business, or they have a career that they're striving for, and their girlfriend or their wives or a woman that they happen to be dating never has anything positive to say about it. And so when you're building something, especially if you're an entrepreneur, or you're building a career, or you're building a business from scratch and you're trying to figure out your business model, it may take you many years of trial and error. Or if you're pursuing a career that may take you 10, 15, 20 years to get the experience and the knowledge that you need in order to grow into where you want to get. Maybe you want to be a CEO someday of the company that you work for. But there's a period of time, there's learning and there's experience that has to be gained on your part. And if you're going to have a woman in your life, you got to make sure that she supports you. Because it's hard enough when you have doubts yourself, you come home, you want your woman to put her arms around you and give you a kiss and say, I'm proud of you, I think you're amazing, I know you'll figure it out. You don't want to coming home going, God, I didn't really get anywhere today, or that didn't go the way I wanted it to, or I tried this thing in my business and it didn't work out. And she goes, oh, that's a fucking stupid idea, you should just quit that anyways. And I got guys that they're dealing with this. And they wonder partly why their relationship isn't that good, and she doesn't support what he's doing. And it's hard enough being an entrepreneur. It's hard enough striving for the dreams that you want than to have somebody that's like literally you're pulling the wagon one way, and it's like the other person that's supposed to be on your team is behind the wagon trying to pull it the opposite way. It's a lot harder to get there. And so it's one of the things that Tony Robbins said. It's so true. Love your family, choose your peers. The quality of your life is going to be in direct proportion to the expectations of your peer group. And if the expectations of your peer group sucks, if most of the people that are in your life are really not people that are striving to better themselves, that are trying to improve their relationships, that want to improve their health, that want to improve their career, that want to improve their business, those are the kind of people that are going to hold you back, because they're not going to be able to relate to you. What happens when you have a problem? If you're an entrepreneur and you're struggling with a business problem, and then you go and you talk to all your friends that work for other people, they're not going to be able to relate. That's why it's so important that you surround yourself with people who uplift you, who celebrate you, who encourage you, who believe in you, who tell you, of course you can do it. Even when you're going through a difficult time, you want them to have a positive, encouraging, uplifting word to say about it. So I got a quote that I wrote before we get into this. I've got one email from a viewer here that I'm going to go through. And a quote I wrote says, "You are not responsible for what others think of you, only how you think of yourself and the meaning that you give to the events and circumstances of your life. Practice radical humility and let other people sing your praises. Successful people talk about their accomplishments. Truly great people Let others speak about their accomplishments instead. Once you have learned to love, embrace, and accept your shortcomings, you will never allow others to use them against you to diminish you in any way again. Haters are gonna hate. Besides, they're only projecting their own self-hatred and self-loathing onto those who they envy, want to be like, or who they feel are better or more successful than them. And it's so important. I say this all the time. And this is like one of the greatest pieces of wisdom that I've gained in my life. And whenever you deal with haters, especially doing what I do in a very public way, you get people that they're miserable. They hate themselves and they hate their lives, and they see something like mine and it's completely contrary to what they believe and what they think. They're fearful, they're afraid, they know they need to take some action, but it makes them feel uncomfortable. And so what do? They try to belittle me. They try to say things and tell me how bad I suck and I'm no good and this and that. And so you get these emails, you get people posting things publicly, you got to block them. You have to deal with it. You're going to see it. There's nothing you can do about it. And at the end of the day, you got to remember, no one will ever do or say anything that isn't a direct reflection of how they feel about themselves in a moment. So you got to remember that. When somebody's hating or they're miserable or somebody cuts you off in traffic, they pull out in front of you and they're, a couple weeks ago, I remember I was driving to get on the interstate, and I just come from Whole Foods, and it was like Sunday, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There's traffic, but it's not jammed. It's a beautiful day out, which the reason I remember is because there hasn't been a lot of really nice days in Florida this past few years. It's mostly raining a lot. But it's like when it's a beautiful day out, I'm just enjoying myself. I got a car full of healthy groceries, and I'm driving back home, and this dude just like in his Mustang cuts right in front of me. And he's just giving me the finger. Kind of, like, what's this guy all about? I have no idea what's going on. I've never seen this guy. This guy just pulls in front of me. And it's like, in a way, it was like a competition. Because I was in the lane, and these 2 lanes are merging. And so, to him, it was like a competition. He's thinking, I'm going to cut this fucking bastard off and give him the finger. It's just like the look out of the guy's face was like, I got in front of you. You don't know what's going on in the guy's life, and you just got to laugh at it and chuckle. Because you never know when you're going to look over in traffic and there's some guy and he's flicking you off, and he's doing this. You have no idea why. It's not your problem. You are not responsible for the fact that he's fucked up and in a shitty mood. You have to look at life that way. So I'm going to go ahead and get into this guy's email, and then we're going to there's a couple little things that he points out that everybody's dealing with. And especially like an area when it comes, like if you're trying to improve your dating life or your pickup skills, your relationship skills, and you start applying these things, what you're going to realize is, like, especially even if you're recommending my book or my website, most of the people that you're going to recommend it to are going like, yeah, that's a great idea. I need to do that. I need to check that guy's website. I need